Good morning, Milan community. Excited to be back for week 2 of our interviews with athletes. Before we begin this week and I introduce our special guest, I want to go back to last week and give a sincere great job to some of the young people on the program. I was so impressed with Miss Sparrow, one of the top 15 students at the middle school, and the job she did presenting. One of our neighbors, Parker Beard, was one of the top 15. So big congratulations to him. Franklin is a star in the making. And then, of course, Alden, the host, all young people that did such a great job. Tristan and I were by far the least interesting people on the entire program. So great job to those young people. Really proud of you guys. Keep up the good work. So speaking of young people, although this person is not so young anymore, my special guest today is a dancer. Who would have known that a dancer would have been picked for this program? Jillian Smith. Jillian, welcome to our interview.
Thanks.
How you doing this morning?
Very good. How are you?
I'm great.
That's good.
So I want to first off explain a little bit of how I know you. Okay, so as I mentioned, you're a dancer, and my wife Tanya is a dance teacher, and my wife had the pleasure of teaching your sister and you in dance, and you dance at Dance Explosion uptown, the dance studio. And so I've been fortunate enough to see you since you were a young person in the dance world to now a graduating senior. So this is a really it's a fun experience for me to be able to to have gotten to know you and then see you kind of progress in life. And so I'm really excited about this interview. I thought a great way to start this off would be with a little trivia. Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 choices.
Okay.
And you have to answer fast. This is like quick draw Wild West trivia. Okay. And I've got four questions for you. You ready?
All right. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Tap or jazz?
Jazz.
Les Mis or Fiddler on the Roof?
Les Mis.
Pink or glitter?
Pink.
Yes. Okay. And last one, and this is the key question. Football or anything else?
Football.
Yes! Wow. I'm telling you what, very impressed with all your answers. If you had to pick glitter, thank God I had to end the interview right there. So good job. Very good. All right. Well, hey, my first question is, dance is kind of an unknown thing to a lot of people. And maybe just because of my background, I didn't really know a lot about dance, but it's kind of a non-traditional sport. When people talk about sports, they don't really, they think school sports. They don't really think dance. You guys have a great community at Dance Explosion. Heidi, the owner, is a class individual person of faith. She does a great job. But can you kind of explain to everybody the dance schedule? Because I know you guys start like in August, right? It goes till late May. I don't know if people even understand kind of the work and the hours that you put in. Can you just kind of give me an overview of what a dance year looks like?
Yeah, so a lot of comp dances, which is what I do for the majority, we will start learning those dances as early as July sometimes. So we'll start with choreography, which runs through July and August. And also in July, we have a summer convention that the entire studio goes to. And then I guess you can say the season actually starts the second week of school, usually for us. And for most comp kids, we're there 5 to 6 days a week, right after school till about 8 o'clock with like random breaks between classes, but probably there at least 6 hours a day. And that will go through May. And in between there, we have 3 competitions that are usually in the end of March, beginning of April. And then our recital is the 3rd weekend in May every year. And for most kids, that's where the season stops. But you can also continue and take summer classes up until when convention starts. So it kind of is like a never-ending season.
Woo.
You're always going.
Yes, and I have learned that as the husband of a dance teacher. It does seem
Yes.
like a never ending
No.
season, but it's a lot of fun too. So dance vocabulary. What does choreography mean?
Choreography is like, it's what the teacher comes up with and it gives the students. It's like the dance that's made up, I guess you can say. So there's the choreographer, which is what Tanya is, that does the choreography for all the students.
Okay, the actual moves, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I compare our offensive football plays to choreography because it's very, it's like you said, the moves, the steps, the hand placement, the head placement, all that kind of stuff. And I think I get a lot of blank stares from my football players when I do that, but maybe if they watch this, they'll understand. So what is a dance competition? Can you explain a little bit about that crazy weekend animal of a dance competition?
Yeah, so competitions, they usually run Friday through Sunday. They can be pretty much anywhere. Like our studio only goes pretty much in Michigan and then into Upper Ohio. But most kids have anywhere ranging from like 2 comp dances. Well, I guess they can only have one. One to like I this year had 11 comp dances. So you can really have as many as you want,
Wow.
including solos and duets and trios and whatever. But usually just depends on how aging is scored. So you always have like minis, juniors, teens, and seniors. So those are different categories. And based on which category in is like what time of day or what day of the week that day of the weekend you're going to be there. So
Okay.
Fridays are usually either minis or they'll do like teen and senior solos. And then Saturday and Sunday just depends on when you go, but are all day. So a lot of times we're up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning so we can get our makeup and our hair done, and we're to competition by about 6:30, because a lot of times we'll start dancing between 7 and 8, and then we'll have some breaks between like dances that we're either getting ready, we're stretching, our parents are running to get us food. We go out and get food like if we have a long period of time, but it's an all-day event and you're just with your team all day. They're fun, but they're very exhausting.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's wild. Yeah. Well, good. I'm telling you, dance competitions are a crazy. How do you remember 11 dances?
I don't know. I think over the years, like every year since I was little, I've like added doing like another dance. So I think I've like trained my brain to be like, okay, like you have to remember this. A lot of times, like I guess with Tanya too, you could say like her style is very similar with every single dance that she choreographs. So that helps, where if you have the teacher for multiple dances, you're like, okay, I know what this dance is going to kind of be like. Or sometimes you honestly just forget and you have to make something up on the spot because you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now, which that happens a lot too.
Yeah. It sounds like a couple of my old quarterbacks. We send in the play and they just make something up on the spot. So that's funny. Well, that's cool. I can't even, we keep all our information in our phones nowadays. I can hardly remember, 11 phone numbers. So the fact that you know 11 dances, that is very impressive. Great. All right. Well, I want to transition into a little bit of a tough discussion. Okay. And I'll not tough as in, I just mean it's been a tough thing for people to handle lately. So let me explain. Someone like yourself, okay, and many people, I would say, who play winter sports and spring sports have worked very hard for a long time. And then when this virus situation hit, things were taken away. So, for instance, the Milan swim team, a winter sport, didn't get to swim in the state meet. Spring sports, there were no spring sports. You got to dance in one dance competition and everything else has been canceled. It really made me think of players that I've coached in the past who have had a season-ending injury early in the season. So, guys like, and these are just guys like right off the top of my head that I wrote down a minute ago: Nate Hibbert, CJ Duffany, Gabe Aceves, Adam Rowland, Dwayne Bartnicki, Mike Morris, guys that really invested a lot of time and worked very hard. And then it came to their senior seasons, and right at the beginning of the season, they were injured, and that was kind of taken away from them. That is a really tough thing to deal with mentally. And so can you tell me about this experience for you this year you've worked hard at this since you've been, a kid, and now one competition in and unexpectedly this happens. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience for you?
In the beginning, it was all kind of like, okay, how much of this is really going to be canceled? I know for dancers, our second competition was canceled right away, but we were always still up in the air. Are we going to have our third competition? What's happening with recital? So right off the bat, it was super weird. It was kind of sad that everyone was kind of like, we'll still be able to dance. But then once everything else started getting canceled and we knew for sure we weren't going to be back in the studio, that's when it started to get harder. Just because knowing you're not going to be with your family, you've worked for dancers, we've worked since July and we're not getting to perform this. So it was a lot of different emotions. I think from a senior standpoint, it kind of helped some people move on. Okay, we're moving on to our next adventure. Mm-hmm. We're done with that chapter of our life. And I also think having people I wasn't injured. I'm not the only person that's not going through this. So I think having other seniors and other dancers and just other people doing sports in general, really helped with the situation, because we're all going through the same thing, where it's not just me where I'm okay, I have no one to relate to because no one else is going through this. It's we have each other to rely on, and we can talk to each other and be okay, how can we make these things that we didn't get happen in some way, shape, or form? It might be a little different, but how can we make this still work for us?
Yeah, impressive. That's a great way to look at it. Great insight there. So what lessons do you think you've learned from this personally? Have you had any realizations about yourself having to go through this that are new?
Yeah, I think my personality is very futuristic. I'm always looking at the next step. So I think for me, it's kind of taught me, don't always look at the next step, really think about what I'm doing now, because at the first competition, if I would have known I was never dancing again with that team, it would have been completely different. So I think for me, it's just okay, really focus on what I'm doing right now instead of thinking, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow, or what am I doing next year? And do I really care about this right now? Actually, regardless if it's something super little or super big, I really just want to that's where my focus needs to be right now.
Great insight. And that is, I think, a huge challenge for most people. Be where your feet are. Don't take anything for granted. And that's very hard, especially for you at this time of life, because, really society, whether it's school or your dance community, it kind of forces you to look forward.
Yeah.
Just because everybody's, what's the next thing? What are you doing next? That's a tough thing. Well, good. That was awesome. You've kind of, I guess, answered this a little bit, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you think this situation makes you personally better, stronger, etc.?
I think it's also what I previously said, but I also think it's made me focus on other people more. Okay. I think some people are very being very internal about this whole situation. This is affecting me. This is what I'm missing out on. But I think I've been okay, I feel bad for the football guys aren't at weightlifting. I feel bad for Tanya. She's also not with all her dancers. It's everyone going through that. So it's also taught me to really focus on other people and how they're dealing with this. And not even just with this, but even when we are done with the virus, how everyone else is doing with their lives. And you really need to be checking up on people, and not everything is about yourself.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Cool. All right. Switching gears a little bit here. Obviously, you're graduating here. Heck, when was graduation supposed to be? Next week or the week after? Pretty soon, right?
The 7th, yep.
What are your plans after graduation?
I'm going to the University of Toledo. I got
Rockets.
I got into the direct admit program for nursing. So I'll be in the nursing program. and I auditioned for their dance team. So I will be a part of that.
You auditioned and you
Yes, and I made it.
made it.
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. So how does the dance team at Toledo differ from your previous experience dancing for a studio?
Well, some of the styles are different because on a dance team, you're not doing contemporary lyrical tap. Like you're not doing like the more stylistic, I guess you could say, like numbers. It's mostly focused on jazz and pom and hip hop are your main three things that you're doing. And whereas a studio, you're only dancing with like them and you're not really part of like a school or anything. The dance team is on the sidelines at football games, basketball games. They're at pep rallies. They're a part of the school. So like that's different. Another thing that's different is usually dance teams go to nationals. It just depends on like how the team is that year, which like our studio, we went to competitions, but we never went to nationals growing up, which is like super big competitions where people from all over the nation will be there. And those are either in like Florida or Las Vegas, just depends on the year. So that'll be super different where there's a bunch of different people from all over coming to compete.
Sweet. Sounds like fun.
Yes.
So, you know, Eastern Michigan rolls up into Toledo, and you got Tristan and Evan Furtney on the opposite sideline. Are you going to secretly hope that they do well, or are you going to hate their guts?
Well, I'll hope they do well, like personally. Like, good for them if they get a touchdown, or hopefully they don't get hurt. But like, I'm gonna be like, no, I want Toledo to win. Like, I don't care about Eastern.
There
but
you
like,
go.
I hope they do well. Personally,
Honest answer.
not their team.
Okay. Good. Funny. All right. Next question. So tell me about a few influences in your life as you're to this graduation point of time, kind of like the end and beginning of things. When you think back to influences in your life, where does your mind go?
Honestly, probably my sister. When I was little, I've been in a dance studio since I was 3 months old because my sister started off dancing when she was 3. So I think my parents kind of just put me in dance because it's what my sister does, what else we're supposed to do with a 3-year-old. So I went into dance.
Right.
Yeah, so I went into dance, and I mean, any 3-year-old starts dance, and they're like, "Yay, I get to wear a leotard and tights and go run around a dance studio." But then once I started getting more into like the like when I turned 7, I started competing. So that's when I started taking it more seriously. And my sister had been competing for a few years by then. And so I think just watching her like go through Dance Explosion and what she did through her high school career, now that she's at Western getting a BFA, like everything that she's done with dance, and she's amazing. And everyone that watches her is like they're just like stunned and they think she's great. So I think just watching her grow up and everything that she's been able to do, that's really like influenced me and pushed me to be better, because you don't want to be the little sister that isn't as good. You want to be just as good as your older sister. So I think that's really pushed me to like get past like the bumps and everything and like be as good as I can.
Okay, great answer. As you mentioned, sometimes it is difficult to have an older sibling who's really good at something and then do that same thing. How have you navigated it not being too much, whether like jealousy or people judging you compared to your sister? Oh, you know, you don't do that as good as your sister, or you actually are more accelerated than your sister at this point in dance. How have you navigated those bumps?
I think when I started middle school and she started high school, that's when it really started, was like, oh, I'm Lauren's little sister. Like, that's how everyone's going to know me. And then my freshman year, I kind of took a break from dance just because I was like, is this actually what I like doing? Or am I just doing it because my sister does it? And so when I took like a little break and I was only taking a few classes, I was like, no, I like actually want to dance. And I think that's where I was really like, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm Lauren's little sister and people aren't comparing me to her. Like, I'm doing this because I love it. And also I think the parents I have, whenever like I'd be like, I'm not as good as Lauren, they'd be like, no, you're equally good. You guys are both good at like different things. Like our dance styles are completely different. So it's kind of hard to compare us. Like I'm much of like a stronger, hard hitting dancer where she's more of like the flowy contemporary dancer. So I think just like growing up with the parents I have and always being like, no, there's differences between you guys that make you guys equally good. I think that really helped. And then me taking that break and realizing that I was dancing because I loved to dance.
Yeah, phenomenal. It's such a, well, you know, from the outside looking in and knowing you for a while now, that's, if you were to ask me that question, I would say your personality, Lauren's personality are so different that your siblings, but to compare you, it's not really even comparable just because you're such different people and you're such different dancers. And I think that's a credit to you of kind of carving out your own niche, right? The whole goal is always to be who you are. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to emulate someone else, but use your God-given abilities and maximize those. And that's really all we can do. So, you know, thinking about my own boys, thinking about Hank and Hamilton, it's like, I hope that I can parent them the same way that your parents have parented you and Lauren. It's, you're different people with different personalities. Work hard to be great at what you can be great at. And then from there, things will just work out. So that's a great point and great move by your parents. Kudos to them. Cool. Well, I have only one more question, and it is not that serious.
Okay.
But to some people, it is serious. So here you go.
Okay.
What are Jillian Smith's tips for beating the heat? Been very hot the past few days. Now, I know it's rainy and dreary today, but some people in this world have very fair skin. Some people have freckles. Okay. What do they do to beat the heat?
You wear sunscreen. You wear sunscreen.
That's all? That's
well,
your only tip?
No. That's to protect your skin. And then, well, me personally, I just sit on my driveway all day with my dog's little pool. And you put your feet in it, and then it keeps you cool.
So you
drink lots of water.
Swim with your dog?
Well, I don't swim with her. She swims in the pool, and I sit in my chair and put my feet in it, so it keeps me cool.
Okay.
And drink lots of water.
Okay, so sunscreen, kiddie pools, and dogs.
Yes.
Stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your tips.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pass those along to everyone I know.
Sounds good.
Well, hey, I have to say, I would tell you this, you know, on a Zoom chat or in person, you are super impressive. I feel very fortunate to have watched you and you know, grow up in the time that I've known you, and it's awesome to be your neighbor. The way that you are with my children and the way that I see you interact with your parents and other people in the neighborhood, you're just a very impressive young person. And I hope that, you know, we can, Tanya and I can raise our daughter to be, you know, someone like you. Just remember the influence you have. Okay, right? Remember the influence you have, and you don't have to be perfect, but you know, to be yourself is certainly enough. So thank you, and honored to talk to you today. You're very well spoken, and I hope people watch this and hope people really listen to some of the things that you said and some of the lessons that you've learned and taken away, because they're lessons we can all use.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, you can either drink another huge cup of coffee or go back to bed. You know, the day is yours.
Good.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll probably talk to you later today.
Yep.
All right. See you, Jilly.
Bye.
Bye.